Content warning for this week's episode. Subject matter will include drug use, death, and sexual content. Please be advised. If you find this content is not for you, we completely understand, and we hope to have you return with our next episode.
My name is Peter Davison, I played the Fifth Doctor, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 444 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. You say it's your birthday. Well, it's not my birthday. It's not my birthday, but as we're recording this, actually my birthday is 2 months from today. So, yay! Not that I am counting. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Boverdale.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello everyone.
Hello. And I had to remember alphabetical order real quick because I don't want to jump the gun like I did that one time.
Well, it doesn't help that Chrissy had to bow out at the last minute, but you know, It is what it is.
Yes.
Children get sick when they get sick, and they don't care if you had other things to do. So
if they want mama, that trumps.
Yep. Yeah. I just hope Chrissy does not catch Lottie's cold.
Yes.
And ends up sick over the holidays, because that would suck.
Yes. Sending good vibes both to Mama and Lottie.
Yeah. Like, do all the cuddling you need to do to make Lottie feel better, but at the same time, bathe in hand sanitizer, Chrissy.
Echinacea tea, immune booster when she's down.
Scrub. So yeah, it would be the three of us. So
yes,
but we shall carry on our wayward sons.
Wrong band.
Yeah, I know.
So I got the reference.
It worked. All right, first up the news. Not a whole lot of news, but just a little bit. First bit that makes me very excited because straight from the horse's mouth, they have confirmed we are getting season 3 of Good Omens.
Yay! I could hear the screaming all the way when I saw the post. I'm just like, oh yay, oh yay, oh yay.
And the fandom collectively squealed and let out a big sigh of relief that we are going to get resolution of some sort.
Well, and they were also doing
in
some
live action.
They were also doing some squeeing with the posts from, was it Georgia? The group, Sheen Tennant family.
Apparently, they're going to get a head start, and the fans and the fan fiction are going to have a field day with the Christmas photos we've gotten the last few days.
And my thing in the chat when you responded, what in the heck is on his head? And then me responding with the River Song gif and my guess.
Huh?
The what in the name of the insanity?
Oh yes, Michael's hat.
Yes, and the
inner River Song came out immediately. Like, what in the name of insanity do you have on your head?
And me without a
and he looks so proud of himself too.
He does.
And David was just like, okay, I'm going with it, but why?
It's like, it's one thing to all have the matching Christmas jumpers.
Yeah.
But really, Michael, the hat.
That was gilding the lily.
A little bit. Well, I think he thoroughly wants to be both embarrassing dad and embarrassing like weird uncle
Yes.
to all the
And
Tenet
embarrassing.
children.
Yes. And embarrassing co-star.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure David's used to it, so
I kind of want
thing is they're probably all used to it. That's the thing.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Martin's you know, hey, can you talk to RTD about me possibly having a cameo in one of those spin-offs?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah. So
He's
fun
already
times
playing his
at
voice.
the lots of fun times at the what did Georgia call it? The Sheen Ludd
Yes.
Lund
Something. It was
Lud Sheen Ludd Tenant Lund Tent household.
Ye-
So
yeah, it was a mouthful. I'm like, okay, whatever
yeah.
works.
It's okay. That Michael, I think this is your sign. You need to make an honest woman out of Anna,
Mm-hmm.
and she could therefore it could just be the Sheen Tenant, brood. So
Yes.
I mean, if Anna wants to keep her last name that she has now for professional reasons, that's fine. But it does kind of make it a mouthful that she's the one with the different last name compared to everybody else. Just saying. You've had 2 children with her. Make her an honest woman.
Yes.
So yes, we are getting season 2 of Good Omens. So that's rather exciting. Oh, for better or for worse. Right now it's exciting. And then I remember that Neil Gaiman has told us that we will get a satisfying resolution, but not necessarily a happy one. So
Yeah,
It's like,
that scares me.
why'd you have to go ahead and do that?
yeah. Like you do know that like 99.99999% of the fandom only wants one way this is going to end, right?
Right. And if we don't get it,
We
we are
riot.
going to riot.
Mhm.
How is that saying go?
Right?
We riot at dawn?
Yep. Yep. Grab your cups of tea. We write it on. So
Yes.
but until then we'll just sit back and wait and reread the book and rewatch the first 2 seasons and consume all the other Good Omens paraphernalia out there, including the buttload of fan fiction, so, which I'm sure Neil will steal from at least a little bit. All right. Speaking of TV, among other things, I've somehow missed this. Thank you, Shalane, for pointing it out. But we had award season is starting again because we have the Golden Globe nominations that apparently were announced last Monday, and we somehow missed that. It's like they didn't make a big deal out of it or something. I don't know. Usually that stuff appears on my feeds in several places. I don't know. But of course, the Golden Globes celebrates both TV and film. And in the film wing of nominations, when it comes to Best Picture and the like, it is split into 2 categories: drama and comedy / musical. So this is one of those where 2 really good movies could win Best Picture doesn't necessarily equate to what will happen in the Academy Awards. That being said, Barbie did get 10 nominations, making it the 2nd most nominated in the history of the Golden Globes, tying it with Cabaret. So that's cool. And then obviously Barbie is going to be in the musical / comedy category, and then Oppenheimer, which was the other big one of the summer, got 8 nominations. So, and then of course TV, a lot of the stuff that I don't watch, that I think most of us don't watch, like Succession and Bear, The Last of Us, Ted Lasso, it's like I recognize the names, I just don't watch them. So, but and then they've also made a few changes. There are each category now has 6 nominees instead of 5, and there are 2 new awards: box office achievement, aka ticket sales, and stand-up comedy performance. But yeah, this will give us at least a good indication of where awards are leaning, if not at least as far as nominees. Again, may not necessarily help when making those Oscar predictions early next year, because the Globes last year gave the 2 Best Picture awards to The Fabelmans and The Banshees of Inisherin. So, and of course, Everything Everywhere All at Once won the Oscar for Best Picture. So
yes.
So yeah. Let's see, anything. Of course, I'm expecting Barbie to win Best Picture, Musical, or Comedy. Of course, Greta Gerwig gets directing nomination for Barbie. Yay! Of course, in the drama category, you've got Oppenheimer, you got Killers of the Flower Moon. Anything Scorsese attaches himself to is automatically going to get a lot of nominations. So, surprisingly enough, oh no, they put him in supporting actor. Interesting. I was going to say Ryan Gosling didn't get nominated for Barbie. No, he's in the supporting actor category. Interesting. Let's see. Television series, again, drama. They separate drama, musical, comedy. The Crown, yay, for drama. Only Murders in the Building for musical or comedy. So yay. Of course, our leads in The Crown, Dominic West, who plays Prince Charles, and Imelda Staunton, who's playing Queen Elizabeth II in The Crown. So that's good. Selena Gomez finally getting an acting nod for Only Murders in the Building.
About time.
Finally. Of course, her two gentlemen leads get nominations as well. So that's good.
Are they both in the same category or both separate?
Yeah, it's in the same actor in a TV series, musical, or comedy. So
okay,
because they're both leads.
Yeah.
Let's see. They also do. What's nice is they also do. Where'd it go? I had it right here. Then my screen moved and I lost it. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah. Best Supporting Actress. Meryl Streep for Only Murders in the Building.
Yay!
So, yay. Not a whole lot else. Really jumping out at me. So, oh God. Okay, this is interesting. Best Original Song, Motion Picture. We got from Barbie, What Was I Made For? Billie Eilish. Barbie, Dance the Night by Dua Lipa, Mark Ronson, all that. Barbie, I'm Just Ken. Super Mario Brothers movie, Peaches.
Oh boy. Jack Black. Oh boy.
Peaches got nominated for Best Original Song.
I love it. I'm shaking my head in disbelief, but I love it.
Yep.
Because you sure as heck know it's not going to be nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
I'd be really surprised if it did.
Yeah.
I'm thinking no.
I mean, I would definitely make sure. I mean, I'm going to watch it anyway, but I definitely want to make sure to tune in for that performance during the Academy Awards.
Same here.
I mean, Jack
Right.
Black, he did just make a guest appearance at a Jonas Brother concert singing Peaches, so why not?
Yep.
Okay, that's funny. All right, that's pretty awesome. So, speaking of awards and movies and all that fun stuff, we do have a new this month's Patreon request for Gold Standard now available in the Patreon feed. We had quite a lovely time discussing the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yay. Light the lamp, not the rat. Light the lamp, not
Light
the
the
rat.
lamp, not the rat. Yep.
That never gets
so
old.
good. so good. So yes, it was quite the conversation because we were all just like, "Oh, this is so good."
Mm-hmm. And how often did you have to stop yourself from quoting? I haven't quite listened yet.
A lot.
I will find out.
A lot.
Not surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very tough to just not quote the entire movie. So there's that. Right, feedback. Like I said, we got some feedback from Shalane. Didn't the Golden Globe nominations get announced on December 11th, the same day you girls recorded this episode? Yes, they did. I don't know how we missed it. Did you girls notice how many nominations Barbie got? Yeah, we did now. So we're caught up. Thank you, Shalane, for the heads up. It happens sometimes, and Shalane's usually on it. So
she keeps us honest.
She does. Thank you, Shalane, for keeping us on our toes. As much time as I spent on the internet and in social media, that stuff usually does not get past me, especially big stuff like that. But for some reason, it did this time around. I don't know why the algorithm was all like, you don't need to see that. And I'm like, I hosted Oscars movie podcast. Yes, I need to know about awards. Thank you very much. So anyway.
Or maybe maybe it knew that we were squealing too much about last week. That we'll wait.
Maybe I don't know.
We will hide this.
Yeah, maybe they're like, oh, they're talking about Doctor Who. Never mind.
It's all good. You can wait.
Don't mind us. We're just gonna sit here in a corner.
We'll patiently wait and listen to the jukebox.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that news and feedback out of the way, we can move on to this week's main topic. So,
prepare to bandage those blisters on the fingers.
Yes. Earworms ahead. We are not sorry.
Nope.
Not at all.
And however, how much YouTube decides to ding us, we will gladly take it.
Yeah. So you may not get a white Christmas, especially though some of us around here where it looks like we're gonna have a wet Christmas. But how about a white album instead?
It works.
I mean, it does. It does kind of work. I mean, the anniversary of its release was late November. It was the 55th anniversary of its release. So, what's the day before Doctor Who Day? 22nd of November. Who knew? That the Beatles released their, what we would call these days a self-titled album, but it's colloquially known as the White Album. It's their 9th studio album. It's the only double album. And this is like, this is the album that things were very obviously starting to fall apart for the band, and the people around them were noticing things were starting to fall apart. That being said, it is still considered one of the best albums of all time. Although I'm pretty sure they say that about almost every album in the Beatles catalog, with maybe the exception of Magical Mystery Tour. So yeah, it's I mean, you know this album. It's just the plain white sleeve, and it just says the Beatles on it in black, and then that's it. Although when it was first printed and released, Paul insisted on having them numbered, and each of the guys got number 1 through 4. So if you got your copy of the White Album early, probably best if you purchase it in the UK, and yours has, not all of them have the number on it. It's just like the first printing run or whatever had numbers. But if your number is close to 1 through 4, then you're very close to the copies that the Beatles owned. So I thought that was pretty cool. Obviously, there's been reprintings since, and remastered, both of the original version, and there have been several remastered versions. As Holly was talking about, she was listening to the 100 plus tracks. That
of sheer Beatley goodness.
Yes, I mean it is, but nowadays, if a band wanted to release something that was 100, that would be like a double CD. Because you could do 50 on a single CD. I mean, when the Beatles' number 1's album was released, it's 50 of them, and it's on 1 CD. I own it. But obviously, at the time, if there's 30 tracks on the original release, and it's 4 sides of 2 vinyls. So, and really, it only worked out that way because not all of the songs are necessarily what we would consider a full song. They're more bits of songs that they didn't necessarily flesh out to have a quote unquote proper running time. And part of the reason why there's so much material is that a big ass chunk of it was written when they were in India on their transcendental meditation retreat with the Maharishi in spring of 1968. And they had access to musical instruments. They were just Indian musical instruments other than an acoustic guitar. That was the only Western instrument they had access to. So that's what they worked with. And then they slowly all left India. Ringo left first after 10 days because he couldn't handle the food. And then Paul left a few days after that, so like 2 weeks. He stayed for like close to 2 weeks. So he had business that he had to attend to, so he ended up leaving. And then John and George stayed the longest at almost 6 weeks. Obviously George was the most into it. And I think John just really appreciated the isolation, and being away from everything, because he was going through a lot at that time. His marriage was falling apart. It wouldn't be too much longer before he meets Yoko. She will factor into this.
Yep. Oh yes.
So yeah. I think both John and George appreciated the time away, probably for slightly different reasons, but still.
To avoid some of the drama.
Exactly. So yeah, they ended up writing 19 songs while they were in India. Between the guys, obviously Paul and John being the most prolific. But George did end up with 4 tracks on this album, which was the most that he'd ever gotten on a single Beatles album. And then Ringo actually gets his first writing credit on this one. So that was pretty cool. So by May of 68, they returned to London. They're at EMI Studios. They would be in the studios until about mid-October. Recording was up and down. It was a roller coaster. The stuff that we saw in Get Back in the documentary, that was a continuation of what had already been occurring during this. Part of it was they were still struggling from Epstein's death, because he'd always done a really good job of reining the guys in. If anything else, he was a good Beatle wrangler.
I mean, with George Martin following a close second.
Yes. Yeah, but even George Martin, after a while, kind of couldn't take it with all of the drama, and he ended up leaving in the middle of production and went on vacation and like left, his protege in charge for producing this album. And like I said, John was going through emotional turmoil. His marriage was broken up. He's now was with Yoko. His and Yoko's relationship. I'm not a psychologist or any sort of that, but I mean, we've talked about John. We know his abandonment issues, that probably never really got properly addressed and treated, among other things. So when he met Yoko, his, as far as his mental state, I think she was good for him. I think she kind of helped anchor him, because John could just be very, yeah, he'd just be kind of like, wow, just like he needed someone to kind of rein him in, but still let him to be the uber creative person that John Lennon is, because she herself was an artist. So she understood that desire to be creative, but she kept him from being so self-destructive.
Right. And she would call him out on the carpet, and at least he'd take it.
Yes. Yeah. So she, despite what people may think, like, oh, Yoko Ono, she helped break up the Beatles. No, the guys were already on thin ice before she ever came in the picture.
Yeah, they kind of were on their own self-destruct timer. It just sped up
really
slightly.
she was there. She was there to hold John's hand when everything finally exploded. So yes, John insisting on bringing her to the studio when that was something that they'd never really done before, because they like to work, just the guys without any sort of distractions, kids, wives, girlfriends, whatever. It's like, this is a place of business. We're working. This is not bring your child to work day.
Right. Kind of the unwritten rule. We don't bring them inside.
Yes. But, John being John, and kind of the obsessive personality that he is, he kind of clung to Yoko as a lifeline, and in his mind he needed to be with her as much as possible, which again I think speaks to his mental state at that time. He needed something to anchor onto, to latch onto.
Right. Well, and then every single close relationship or quasi good relationship he had, it ended badly. So I'm thinking he's trying to hold on a little tighter than he should.
Yeah, that was probably it too. It's like, if I hold on really, really, really tight, maybe this one won't go away. Maybe this one won't leave me, and I won't be alone. No, that very much that could be it. So, but you cannot blame Yoko on the breakup of the Beatles. I'm sorry.
No.
And she has been, I mean, we talked about this when we did our episode on John. She has been absolutely the person that has kept John, John's legacy going. And also being there whenever his murderer is up for parole. She is always there to testify and make her case that the parole board should keep him behind bars.
Yeah.
So Yoko has been very, very integral into both the Beatles and John's legacy over these so many years. So but she was there, and she does make several vocal appearances on the album. So
Yep.
Some more obvious than others.
Yes.
So and this is also during the time period where Ringo left. As most people know their Beatles history, when the band started to fracture, Ringo was the first one to quit. And then he came back. Although,
and the band didn't realize he had quit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they continued to work without him.
Well, true,
and recorded some stuff while he was not there. But when he did return, they welcomed him with open arms. They decorated his drum set with flowers and all this stuff. But at the same time, they're like, "Oh yeah, we continued to work and recorded some stuff without you." So, it's a little, fun. Thanks.
Backhanded. Yeah, welcome, but here's what we did.
Yeah, here's what you missed. And they were also, while they were, going forward with their own, obviously this album, on the business side of things, this is the same time period. Goodness, I cannot speak today. That Apple was founded, and I do not mean the technology company. No. This is Apple Records. Their business, and unfortunately, Apple was not run very well, not managed very well. So really, Apple was hemorrhaging money, despite having the Beatles there and their success. Just the other artists that they tried to help and promote, it just was not working out well. And Paul did his best. He wanted Linda's father to be their new manager. So there's arguments about that. At the same time, Paul tried to be kind of pseudo manager in the interim, but Paul wasn't very good at it. So sorry, Paul.
Well, then the head
you got your strengths.
The others, like, why are you at the head of
Yes, and Paul was very much. He was. Yeah, well, if you can imagine John, scrambling to keep hold of Yoko for his own sake, Paul is like scrambling to keep a hold of the Beatles as a business entity, and as this thing that he helped create, and doesn't want to lose it, because they'd already been, kind of raked over the coals with their early catalog that they did not have rights to, which is just a dumb thing.
Yep.
I went on was it this show? Was a Gold Standard that I went on a rant recently about artist contracts and how not having the rights to your own stuff these days
it could have been both.
Should not be a thing. It should not be a thing that goes into contracts unless you're just like the worst, most underhanded business person ever. But it's people losing the rights to their creations. That's been going on for ages and is for as long as people have been
Done
doing
contracts.
business. Yeah, since people have been doing business. I mean, Walt Disney lost the rights to Oswald
Mm-hmm.
in the early days. So,
I mean, yeah,
it took the company ages to get the rights back. So
the same thing happened with the Who to get out of a record deal. I mean, they lost money up until after Tommy came close to happening to Queen. So it's just, I mean, yeah.
Well, the fact that it's
History
even
repeating itself.
I mean, it's still happening in this modern age. The fact that Taylor Swift,
yes, had to re-record
didn't
stuff.
have the rights to her stuff. I mean, this is a new millennium, folks. This should not be happening. So this is why the Beatles formed Apple, was to try to anything that they created from here on out, they would have the rights to.
And you wonder why most of the artists are self-producing these days and age.
Yes, exactly.
This day and age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they did what they could. And I mean, as far as the album is concerned, I mean, we'll go over the individual tracks, but there were no singles ever issued. Hey Jude and Revolution came from the same recording sessions and were released as singles, but neither of those appear on the album, on this particular album. Which I love Hey Jude.
Yeah.
So somebody on TikTok that was talking about songs that have the audience sing along na 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 type sections.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "What's your favorite?" And I'm like, "Hey Jude," and like being in a sold out audience of Paul McCartney / Wing / Beatles fans, singing along with Paul the na 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 bits to Hey Jude is a experience that you cannot describe. It is an experience like none other that you will ever experience in your life.
I can remember that happening to me 8th grade at Milwaukee County Stadium, nosebleed seats, watching them and doing that. Yeah, I get you. It's just like,
yeah. The minute the words "Hey Jude" come out of Paul's mouth, I'm in tears.
Yep.
So it is like, yeah, it is something else. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yep.
That being said, the album itself has been certified 24 times platinum.
Ouch.
So, yeah, I think it's done okay.
Yep.
As far as sales are concerned.
Yeah, we're heading into press platinum territory, to pardon the Star Trek Deep Space Nine pun.
Yeah. Yeah, because platinum is 1 million.
Yep.
So 24 times platinum means 24 million copies have been sold.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot. So that includes my copy. So.
Mine too. Or how many variations of said copy I own.
Yeah. Like there's a physical one that I have on CD. I have it on playlist on Spotify.
Yeah, and then don't forget. Oh yeah, the remastered. So yeah, I had to buy another copy of that because it's remastered. Yeah.
Yes, I gotta add that to my vinyl collection. So. So yeah, it's done okay, I think. Despite all the background drama. And if it, well, we'll get into it when we talk about the individual tracks, but even them just trying to decide which tracks would go on the album and in what order and that sort of thing, the guys were, especially John and Paul, were just like at each other's throats. It's just like, this is why people outside of the that were watching from the outside, either at the studio or whatever, were like, yeah, this is not going to end well.
Kind of like Daffy Duck, Eleanor Fudd, or Daffy, or the duck season, rabbit season.
Mm-hmm.
On the album, off the album,
Yeah.
on the album, off the album.
Yep. Now, thing is, George Martin didn't necessarily want to do a double album, and wanted him to do a single album with the strongest stuff. They said no. Years later, George said, we probably could have cut some of them or made them B-sides. But he also supported the idea of the double album. Because they had a lot of stuff in backlog. Ringo, obviously eventually agreed, but he thought that it should have been two separate records, which he jokingly called the White Album and the Whiter Album. And then Paul is on the record saying that it was fine the way it was. It was great. It sold.
And I think George Martin pretty much at the time was just toss paper up in there. Fine, whatever. Make the two of you guys happy. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Just work. Please.
Yeah. Depending on who you ask, some people think that translated into the music. John said that the Break Up the Beatles could be heard on that album. Other people disagree. It's definitely, up to this point, it's definitely different for a number of reasons. One, it's a lot of material, 30 tracks. Each track is very unique. Unlike before, where sometimes they would mix genres together in a song. You would have an electric guitar, but also like one of George's sitars, so it has a mix of that Indian, but also, some, heavier rock, obviously, each of the guys has their kind of taste or type, styles that they tend to lean into. But in this, every track is distinct in its genre, in its style. They don't have the longer cuts of silence in between the tracks. A lot of them feed one right into the other. Which makes for a very cohesive listening experience.
Yes.
It's a little weird if you put it on shuffle. If you have that option, because it would not necessarily feed into the song that they intended. But it's all good. That's a first world problem.
You get some interesting mashups that way.
Yes. Yeah. And the guys had disagreements over songs and song styles. Paul had become very anal and perfectionist for some reason, which caused them to have to do multiples of takes for some of these songs. Sometimes they would just do multiple takes and be jamming, like if they were having a good day, and they just pick the best one. And then there are some days where Paul just had like a stick up his ass and, we'd do 20, 30, 40, 50 takes of something because he was not liking it. And sometimes it got to the point where they scrapped everything they'd done and just start over from scratch because he was just not liking the way it was turning. I don't know what Paul deal was. I think he was just I think he was just scrambling to try to keep a hold of this thing. And he's like, if it's perfect, then, everything will be fine.
Or if I grump and groan and be perfectionist enough, we keep this going and we stay together a little bit longer.
They would get annoyed when Yoko started showing up, but then after a while, it just became anybody's girlfriend or whatever would show up. So Paul's girlfriend, the short girlfriend that he had for a short while before he ends up with Linda, would show up sometimes. Patty, who was George's wife at the time, and Maureen, Ringo's wife at the time, they would show up. They end up on some of the tracks actually. So, but yeah, they would. It's just got really kind of ugly. John would refer to Paul's songs as cloyingly sweet and bland. And then Paul would refer to John's stuff as harsh, unmelodious, and deliberately provocative. I think I watched a video or read somewhere that at one point John referred to Paul's music as music for grandmas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and at the same time, the guys were also starting to work on like their own stuff. George worked on a concept album that he did solo. John with Yoko did the Two Virgins album during the same time period. So it was just, sometimes they would be there at EMI, but they'd be in different studios and not in the same studio working on stuff. So it was ugly. So, so that being said, let's get into the tracks themselves, starting with album 1, side 1, with Back in the USSR, which is a nod to Chuck Berry's song Back in the USA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I just
obviously
love how
that title is
out.
a little dated because it's no longer the USSR. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's the idea of this guy flying from wherever he was to the USSR, very much talking about the girls, that style is very Beach Boys influence as well.
Yes, with the nod to California Girls.
The nod to California Girls. Yes. Not surprising, it was banned. The Beatles music as a whole was banned in the USSR, in the Soviet Union. So, but the track became a very hot bootleg.
Oh yes. Comrade Beatles, they know what they're talking about.
Yes. Well, yeah. So, and that's one that Paul has on his set list quite often. So, Dear Prudence is one that's influenced from their trip to India, because Prudence is actually Mia Farrow's sister, who was part of the group that ended up going to India along with the Beatles. Their group, by the time everyone had gotten to India and got settled in, their traveling group was like 60 people or something. Wow. Like, it was stupid large how many people followed the Beatles to India. So but Prudence got really into meditation and would get to the point where she would be in like her tent or in someplace secluded and quiet and just meditate for like hours, and finally got to the point where they're like, come on girl, let's come eat something, come stretch your legs, come read a book, come do something. So very biographical. So but definitely that comes from India. Glass Onion is one of the I took a class in undergrad at college about the music of the Beatles.
Oh, nice.
It took me
Jealous.
so many semesters before I could finally fit it into my schedule. And when I finally did, I was so glad. But the class, it goes through the entire Beatle catalog in chronological order.
Nice.
It's so good. But Glass Onion is essentially John responding to people constantly asking about what the lyrics mean to some of the Beatles songs.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Strawberry Fields and I Am the Walrus and The Fool on the Hill. It's like,
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And John essentially wrote this as you want to know what our song, song lyrics are about? Here, listen to this and figure it out. It was,
Have fun.
yeah, it was really just like like I'm just gonna make the most weird, crazy, lyrics and just to mess with people's heads, essentially. So,
and a tongue-in-cheek answering some questions. Well, yeah, the yeah, he's still living up there. He's fine.
Yeah.
He's happy.
Yeah. I mean, it also, the line, the walrus is Paul.
Yep.
And, I Am the Walrus, and the way that song ends fed into the Paul is dead.
Yep.
Myth.
And Lady Madonna's still trying to make ends meet.
Yes. Yeah. So, and actually Glass Onion was a name suggested by John for a group that they signed to Apple, that at that time they were going by the Ivies. They did not go with John's suggestion of Glass Onion. They chose the name Badfinger instead. And of course, Glass Onion also the title of the last Knives Out film.
Yes.
So
as soon as they saw the trailer, like, yep, somebody's a Beatles fan. Got that reference.
Yep. So, Oobla Dee Oobla Da, which is my mother-in-law's favorite song. Anytime we see Paul, we always try to capture some of it and send it to her because she loves that song.
Oh, nice. Yes.
So, but this is one that Paul just like about drove himself and everybody else crazy. Trying to put together the making it perfect. So he it didn't help that John hated this song.
I could kind of see why.
Yeah. It's definitely not John's style. So
no.
He called it granny music shit. And this was another one that its origins come from India. And it's supposed to be like reggae.
Okay, that's not the kind of reggae I know.
Yeah. This is reggae with a British twist.
Yes.
So, but yeah, this was this is one that they did multiple takes, multiple versions, and did again and again and again and again. Paul ends up playing the drums because this is one of the ones they recorded while Ringo was out. This, for some reason, Paul got a bee in his bonnet about this one, and it got to the point where one of the techs quit because it got so frustrating.
And sometimes this is why we cannot have nice things.
Exactly. That being said, again, this is one that Paul has Paul does on a fairly regular basis. Obviously, there is a bit of a flub with some of the lyrics, but the guys liked it and thought it was so funny that they left it. So, but yeah, it's definitely a very Paul McCartney song. Yeah, but it's fun. Yeah. Wild Honey Pie, which is just one of those short little, it's not even a minute long, it's 52 seconds. Where it's just them experimenting with stuff. So Paul got a guitar and was just playing with the different multi tracks and stuff, and not anything really like, oh my goodness. It's just one of those fun little blurbs. Then we get Yoko's singing debut. I hit stuff. The continuing story of Bungalow Bill, which was written by John, but is credited as Lennon McCartney. I guess it's based slightly on a real story from when they were in India. There was a young American named Richard Cook III who was visiting his mother, who was there at the monastery for the Maharishi, and they were staying there at the same time the Beatles were there, and that they thought that, according to Nancy, who was Rick's mother, the genesis of the song occurred when she, Rick, and several others, including guides, set out upon elephants to hunt for a tiger. And the pack of elephants was attacked by a tiger, which was shot by Rick. But apparently Rick was not necessarily like that pleased with himself, and then gave up hunting altogether. So somewhat of a true story. So, but it's a very kind of something maybe like you'd hear if you're sitting around a campfire at camp. And then someone would sing the verse, and then everybody would join in and sing the chorus, and then because the story involves is about Bungalow Bill, but also his mom. They needed someone to play Bungalow Bill's mom, and that got to be Yoko. So, which is why we get to hear Yoko sing a bit. So, although Maureen actually sings in the group bit, when they sing the chorus. So, it's kind of a weird track.
Yeah.
John likes to tell stories. So.
Yes, he does.
And then one of George's tracks, and one of George's greatest songs that he ever wrote, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. While, George wrote it after he got back from India. Because he had been playing a lot with Indian instruments, both during that trip and before. So when he got back, he's like, I'm gonna bust out good old fashioned guitar. And while he was reading a book while visiting his parents, he came across the phrase "gently weeps." And that's where the title came from. And the thing is this is not Beatles. I mean, it is, but it's not just the Beatles, because George was struggling with the some of the guitar parts, and so he asked one of his friends, what do you think, who's also a musician. He's like, what do you think? And his friend was like, well, you could do it like this. And George was like, why don't you come into the recording studio and do it? And his friend was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, bringing in people all the time, so why can't I? That was Eric Clapton.
Yep.
Yes, so yeah, that lead guitar is Eric Clapton on that track. So yeah, it's just one of those tracks, that's this, you think of George Harrison, and that's one of the songs that you first think of. And obviously, it's been covered by a lot of people.
Yes.
Over the years. There is actually another verse that never ended up in the original recording, but in the anthology you can hear a version that's got the unused verse. And then if you've somehow been living under a rock and want to see a very a performance of this song that will make you like crap your pants in the best way, watch the performance from when George was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Prince will make you crap your pants.
Yep. Because it was him, Tom Petty, and Donnie. Yeah. And Prince was, I think, a walk-on, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah. He did not show up in time to do any sort of rehearsing, but he's like, I've got it. And he and Eric Clapton just kind of like, non-vocally communicated with each other. And when it reaches the point for the guitar solo, they just let Prince go, and he kills it. He absolutely kills it. So they just kind of let him go, and then when he was done, he was done.
Yep.
So
mic drop. He's out.
I mean, it's so iconic. I can't speak for it now, but when Chauncey and I visited the Rock Hall a couple years ago, they have a short video that it talks about the history of the Rock Hall and its origins and how the evolution of it since then and all that. But the video ends with that. Like, there's no other way to end a video about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame except with this clip of Prince just absolutely killing it on My Guitar Shelly Weeps. So I'm not necessarily a Prince fan, but damn, that man can play guitar.
Oh yes.
And the last one on that side is Happiness is a Warm Gun. Bang, shoot. Which, then nobody maybe thought twice. Nowadays, a title like that maybe not go over so well, but
nope.
It's another John song. Yep. Even if they're even if the title,
the double entendres, let's just put it that way,
made you raise your eyebrows. Yeah, there's a lot of either double entendre or metaphor or however you want to interpret it for.
Your mind will be going to the gutter. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Either to, what happens between two people who really physically are into each other.
Yeah.
Or drugs. Although in John's Playboy interview, he says it has nothing to do with drugs, but it definitely guns and sex. So
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, when I feel my finger on your trigger, I'm so sorry to the kids who may be listening to this.
Yeah.
That it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to not take that as something something else.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, so
Yeah,
that being
John, we can
said,
see you
the
wink, wink,
band,
nudging,
yeah,
nudging the whole way
yeah,
through the song.
yeah, the guys actually really enjoyed recording this one. So
I wonder why.
I don't know. Then you flip to side two.
Yes.
With completely going the other direction with Martha, My Dear, which Martha was Paul's English sheepdog.
Yeah. And kind of the old timey,
Mm-hmm.
imagining walking into, a saloon and hearing this played.
Yeah. Although a lot of people think that Martha is a substitute for Jane Asher, who at this point, Paul had broken up with, but Paul was not necessarily happy about it. So,
Yes.
but yeah, good old Martha. And if you've never seen an old English sheepdog in real life, Max from Little Mermaid, Prince Eric's
Yep.
dog, is an old English sheepdog. So
Big and floofy.
yes, very big and floofy. So yeah, I kind of, when I listen to it, I vision an actual dog, and is like, look what you've got into, and the fact that Paul like lives on a farm. It's like I just imagine this big dog just like jumping in a mud puddle and
Yep.
just getting all disgusting and be like, look
Yep.
what you've done, so.
Look what I found. I had fun outside. I'm covered in muck and
Mhm.
and yes, some of my white fur just happens to be a lovely shade of green because I decided to roll in the grass.
Mhm. Exactly. It's a fun song.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is one where Paul's the only Beatle that appears on the track. All the rest of it is session musicians. So, and then it seems to be the theme song for a lot of people around here. I'm so tired. Written by John when they were in India and he was suffering from insomnia. So in this case, this is very much, you could take this is no sort of, double entendre or anything. It is just like, John is tired and he wants to sleep and he can't.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's so tired, but he can't sleep, and he's like, what am I gonna do? So it's either drink or smoke, because it's like I'm so tired, I'm just too tired to do anything else. So and then at the very end of the track, there's some mumbling in the background. That supposedly, if you played it backwards, is Paul is dead man. Miss him. But it's actually John saying, Monsieur, Monsieur, how about another one? So again, feeding into the Paul is dead conspiracy. So another Paul track, Blackbird. This is one that Paul also does quite often in concert. So and this is Paul's kind of nod to the civil rights issues that were going on here in the United States in the 60s. So not that Britain is squeaky clean of any sort of racism or anything, but if um, there's oh crap, who wrote the what's the book? There's a book written by a journalist, called Ticket to Ride, and it's during their 64 tour. But Larry Kane, he was a journalist, and he traveled with the Beatles during that time. And one of the things that he mentions, which I still wish I had my copy of the book. I don't know what happened to it. But when they came to the United States and went to the South and realized that in some places they wanted to segregate their shows, they were surprised at the way that people of color were treated here in the United States in the 60s, because that was not common in the UK, in England. So it caught them by surprise. Oh, and obviously the civil rights movement continued on, still continues on, actually. So Paul wrote Blackbird kind of as a nod to acknowledging that. So and another one of George's tracks is Piggies. Which is a social commentary about greed and consumerism. So it almost sounds like it could have been a Paul track with the the harpsichord and stuff, but no, this is George. But yeah, the political climate in 68 was very turbulent. So although when I the first time I ever heard it, I did not when I heard Piggies, I thought of cops. Because sometimes that's what cops will be referred to as.
Yes.
Is pigs.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, both my parents are cops, so I grew up around lingo and stuff like that. So
yep.
Yeah, I thought of police. They're referring to like the fat cats of like Wall Street and stuff. Yeah.
And or politicians.
And or politicians. You know, the 1%.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is not surprising me that George would write something like that, because he was very aware of stuff like that. So, and then another story song, Rocky Raccoon.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which is a kind of a country song.
Yes.
About a guy named Rocky,
yep.
whose girl runs off with another guy.
Yep.
And Rocky tries to get revenge and loses.
Yep. And it seems like the girlfriend has quite the list names there. The Witness Protection Program, anybody? Lil McGill, Nancy?
Yeah. Well, maybe she preferred to go by Nancy because Lil McGill sounded funny.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. He ends up losing the gun draw against Dan, his rival. Gets shot.
Hey Doc, it's only a scratch.
Yeah,
flesh wound line coming up in Monty Python.
Yeah, it's another. It's a bit of a. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's a pastiche. He's.
Yes.
It's a nod to the country folk storytelling, but the song is just ridiculous. So it's like. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's just one of those silly, silly songs that Paul would come up with every now and then. But it's fun. So, at least it does tell a complete story, kind of. So, and I can say for certain, as someone who was just in a hotel recently, you can still find Gideon's Bible in your hotel room. So, then we get to Ringo's first solo composition, "Don't Pass Me By," which very much could have been, it sounds like, it could have been, an old like country western song with the fiddle. But no, this is written by Ringo. I mean, it's very Ringo. It's very Ringo. It's just it's a very simple, rhythm to it.
It's a catchy beat.
It is very catchy. Again, the reference to a car crash.
Yeah.
Feeding into the Paul is dead mythos. But yeah, I mean, it really kind of has to be simple for Ringo. Yeah, one, he's not necessarily a songwriter, being a drummer. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but as we've alluded to in our Ringo episode, Ringo's not the strongest singer. So making it simple makes it easier for him. Play to his strengths. So, but it's definitely one that, when I was getting ready to see Ringo, this was one that I listened to a lot. So, the thing is, I don't remember if he actually played it when we saw him. I don't think he did. So.
And Ringo, I think, even went back and re-recorded it for one of his solo albums too, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Both versions are good.
Yeah. And then another just kind of filler song. It's a minute 42. Why don't we do it in the road?
Yeah.
No double entendre here. This is exactly what you think.
You think it is?
Yes. When they were in India, they spotted some monkeys in the middle of the road doing what wild animals do.
Yep.
Yeah. So it really is just, George.
Paul, ma'am.
I mean, that's kind of what the monkey did, actually. And Paul, thought was, well, they just do it and don't think twice about it. Why do human beings have to be so stuck up and, feel like talking about that kind of thing is just like, oh no, don't talk about that, clutch your pearls type thing. So, then we have a nice little, short little love song, again written by Paul. I Will. Another short one, minute 46, but it's cute. It's a nice little love song. So I believe this is the one non-Disney song that Chauncey and I used at our wedding.
Oh, cool.
I think. So I'd have to find the program to be able to tell you.
And the I Will seems like it could have easily fit in a very earlier Beatles album, just with the way it was done.
Yeah. Well, it's like we mostly use Disney's music because we got married at Disney and that's what their musicians know how to play. But I did want, we wanted something that was like, a love song that isn't like a Disney love song. Because those tend to be not our style. But it needed to be something that could be played by a violinist. So, so I think that's why I picked it and asked if that was something that they could do. So, and then the last track on the first disc is Julia, which is John's ode to his mother. Who had died back in 1958. So it's very much John writing, a song to his mother. It's fairly straightforward, I think. So, and this is like a Lennon solo, quote unquote solo track. So no other Beatles play on this one. So, and then we move to side 3 or side 1 of the second disc. Birthday used by a lot of people when it's someone's birthday.
Exactly.
If you don't care for the traditional happy birthday song,
this is the one to go for.
Yeah, got this one. So,
I mean, and it's a rocker.
yeah. I mean, the lyrics again fairly straightforward. Like you're gonna do if you're gonna sing to somebody for their birthday. But it's Paul, when Paul showed up for Ringo's 70th birthday show back in 2010, they performed it. So Paul does do this one occasionally in concert. He did it last time I saw him last year. Funnily enough, it was like less than a month before his birthday. So it was like, he's like, is anybody, before he started playing, he's like, anybody in the audience having a birthday? I'm like, you are in like 3 weeks. So, both Yoko and Patty Harrison are the backing vocals of that one.
Cool.
So, and then John wrote Your Blues, again, because he was not having the best time mental health wise while they were in India, and he wanted to write a blues song to help get some of these feelings out. It's one of those where it's just like, like if you take it seriously, it kind of makes you really worried for John's mental state at the time. But at the same time, you could kind of take it as somewhat like satirical, like just how some blues songs they like really dig into like like the worst feelings ever, and he kind of like John was like, well, what's the worst thing that what's the worst feeling that a blues singer could feel, could sing about? Wanting to kill yourself. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Oh, John.
You know how to make things go dark real quick.
He does. Oh. Excuse me. Mother Nature's Son. Which, according to Paul, he said he was inspired by Nat King Cole's Nature Boy, which he heard growing up. And he wrote this while he was visiting his father in Liverpool. So, and this is another one where it's Paul and then some studio musicians. Then this one he does sometimes in concert. So just another cute little kind of very Paul McCartney song. So
yes.
Then back to John. Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey. Oh, John. According to John, it addresses his bandmates' initial reaction to his relationship with Yoko.
Wow. Okay.
But it also predates his relationship with Yoko. So, technically, but like he started to write some of it in India, and his relationship with Yoko didn't really start till after they got back from India, but whatever. It was just, it's John. Although Paul thought at one point it was about heroin because the term monkey is often associated with the drug, Sarah. According to the last interview he gave before his death, John said, "As I put it in my last incarnation, everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey. It means really that one cannot be absolutely oneself in public because the fact that you're in public makes you have to have some kind of defense or whatever it is." Which is funny. It's just kind of this rocking song, and it's like me and my monkey.
Mm-hmm.
And Sexy Sadie.
Yeah.
If you take it at face value, it's like, oh, John's got like the hots for somebody. No, Sadie is the Maharishi because John became very disillusioned with the Maharishi after supposedly the Maharishi made some advances on Mio Farrow of all people, and how that was rather foolish to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, because he was originally going to call it Maharishi, and then he changed it to Sexy Sadie. So,
well, now the lyrics are making a whole lot more sense with the Maharishi, knowledge.
Yes,
made a fool of everyone. Yeah,
yeah, and supposedly there is a take with John using some of his earlier lyrics before he'd fleshed out the lyrics completely, which I will not repeat on this show. And it turns out actually the Maharishi didn't actually do anything. Yeah, whatever. It's John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like we're saying that a lot. It's John. Oh, and then probably the most infamous off of this album, Helter Skelter.
Uh-huh.
Which is the term for a twisty slide in Britain. But if you weren't British, you didn't know that. Especially if you're little not the best place mentally and decide to create your own cult.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think that the song is actually, when played backwards, has secret messages about an upcoming interracial war in the United States. Yeah, if you don't know the story of Charles Manson,
yeah,
where have you been?
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, you got the cliff notes of Charles Manson. Granted, he was already like on the road to on the road to destruction before this song ever came around.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't be like, oh, him listening to the Beatles drove him crazy. No, he was already on that road. He just found a good excuse.
Yes.
He found something to justify the feelings and ideas that he was having. And not that I think anybody does, but if there's anybody out there that's like, oh, Helter Skelter caused the death of Sharon Tate, no, it did not. So no, it was just, especially considering Charles Manson was feeling like he was being influenced from a number of places.
Yes.
So not just the Beatles music. So, especially considering at one point, one of the murders that the Manson family committed, they spelled it wrong. So, but yeah, that's made that song rather infamous, unfortunately, with the Manson family and all that came with that. So, but this is one that Paul does sometime. He did it when I saw him last year, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, and I can remember too, Bono and U2 covering it on the Rattle and Hum album. And Bono saying, Charles Manson stole this from the Beatles. We're stealing it back. And I'm just like, yes.
Yeah.
Proper way to do it.
Yeah. Ooh, excuse me. But because Helter Skelter is like a decently long track at like 5 minutes and some change, or almost 5 minutes, depending on what version you're listening to. It's like 4.5 minutes on the stereo version. That actually fills in quite a bit. So the last song on that side is George's Long, Long, Long.
Yep.
And George says, later, George stated that he was addressing God in the lyrics, which, in this post India trip life that George is in, we're going to be, hearing that and seeing that a lot, both in the remainders of the Beatles and then into his solo career. So George was very, very spiritual. So and then flip over to the last side with Revolution 1, which is the slower revolution.
Yeah,
I guess, if you want to call it that. So it's revolution, but it's a very slow down version of it. So and lots of takes. So they take 18 is the one that appears on the Super Deluxe Edition. That take is 10 minutes and 17 seconds. So it's very blues. It's very laid back. A bootleg version of Take 20 got released in 2009. It's 10 minutes and 46 seconds. But it's just very just like sup revolution. It's not going to get anybody like riled up to like grab some signs and hit the streets and start protesting. So but yeah, it's a thing. And then not to be confused with Wild Honey Pie, we have Honey Pie, which is like a 1920s like flapper style. Well, quite the it has saxophone and clarinets, and you can very much imagine yourself dancing, in like a speakeasy in the 20s. Yeah. Another one that John apparently hated. Called it Beyond Redemption. Ouch, John, ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then George's last composition, Savoy Truffle, which is about a box of chocolates. This would be Forrest Gump's favorite song.
Yeah.
Apparently partially influenced by a warning that Eric Clapton had gotten when he recently had gone to the dentist about be careful about eating too much sweets. So if you've ever gotten one of those box of chocolates from like a great aunt or something, and why it's not mandatory across the board that they don't have some sort of like cheat sheet, either inserted in the box or printed inside the lid. So then you have to bite into them to find out what they are. So John's not on this one. So they do have several extra musicians because there's horns and saxophones and stuff. So, but it's just George, Paul, and Ringo on this one. So, and then "Cry Baby Cry," which is a John track. Apparently, John got some of the words from an advertisement. So, and actually, this song is part of or connected. It depends on how you want to do it. This is either one song and then there's an uncredited track, or there's like a coda that's actually part of the song that Paul sings about "Can You Take Me Back?" Because it's not listed as a track on the track list. So, depending on whether you consider that its own thing and it's just an uncredited track, or it's actually part of the song. Again, they were just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks at this point. So, oh, and then you have Revolution 9, which is 8 minutes and 22 seconds of very. If it wasn't for the fact that this is pre-Monty Python, I would think this is Monty Python. With just the very avant-garde mix of sound effects and vocal tracks, like everybody at the very least knows number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, so. Apparently EMI had a library of just like various sound effects and vocals and stuff that just like anybody could use, and that's where a lot of this came from, including the number 9. So, but yeah, it's Yoko. John took Yoko and made her into a track. This is what it is. So,
yep.
Wikipedia refers to it as a sound collage, which, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So John said he was trying to paint a picture of a revolution using sound. Okay.
All right. Mission somewhat accomplished, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So number 9. And the very last track, written by John as a lullaby for his son Julian, but it's actually sung, / spoken by Ringo, which is a nice little lullaby. Not bad vocals by Ringo, all things considering. So you get a little bit of an ASMR effect there at the end when Ringo's whispering, "Good night, everybody." And then that's it. So, I mean, it's an interesting mix of things, tracks. Again, these recording sessions did get us "Hey Jude," but that does not appear on this album. It was just released as a single. And "Revolution." So the song that would actually make you feel like you want to get up and grab a sign and go out and protest something. And then there's a whole bunch of unreleased material. Some of it would end up being used elsewhere. There is John's the song at the time was called "Child of Nature." Eventually was reworked as "Jealous Guy," which he would do as a solo artist. Paul's "Junk," which would appear in his solo work. Some of the stuff got reused in other Beatles stuff like Mean Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam. Those are in the medley and Abbey Road, which we already talked about. So some of that stuff appears on Anthology 3. As I said, there was a bootleg of Revolution Take 20. Which is really just Revolution 1 and Revolution 9 put together as one big track, but still. And like I said, it did well. It debuted #1 in the UK, December of 1968, 7 weeks at the top of the UK charts. Capitol sold 3.3 million copies within the first 4 days of the album's release.
Wow.
Reached #1 in its 3rd week, spending 9 weeks at the top. The Beatles, the album spent 215 weeks on the Billboard 200. So it is their most certified album with 24 times platinum. So yeah, I'd say that even for it being a little, different than what people were expecting, because this was, even just the packaging was a stark difference from what people had just purchased previously with Sgt. Pepper.
Right.
Which was the album before this, which, the cover for that's iconic as well, but obviously not minimalist at all. It's a very busy cover, very colorful, a lot to look at. And then for them to go to this where it's like white, it was just like, sending a message to to their fans. They're like, oh, this is gonna be something different.
Yeah.
You're used to, you're used to at least something on the cover, whether it's just their faces or something like Sgt. Pepper or Magical Mystery Tour. That's a wild looking cover as well. So it's like, here you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Walking to her. Hey, what's that white cover? Who is that? Oh, okay.
In a way, it does catch people's attention for being so plain, and then of course, almost 30, 20 something years later, Metallica would do the same thing, just with the opposite color with the Black Album. So, and they did do a 50th anniversary edition 5 years ago. So you can pick that up if you like. It's been remixed and remastered. So you've got the demos that they recorded when they first got back from India and went to George's house and did a bunch of demos. And then there's the various recording sessions, different takes, including some songs that, did not make it onto this album or anywhere, or in some cases did make them elsewhere. So, all was it 699 minutes of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a material.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, depending on which version you get, there's a 3 CD deluxe set, which includes the original double album, the demos from George's place on 1 CD. There's a 7-disc super deluxe edition, which has 3 more CDs of all those outtakes and various takes. A 2 LP edition, which is just the original release. A 4 LP edition, which is going to have the original plus the they call them the Escher demos because that's where George was living at the time, was Escher. The Escher demos. So yeah, up to 7 discs depending on which edition you get. So
Yep.
it's a lot.
Yes.
Hours and hours and hours.
But it's so nice that they're going into the vaults and compiling and putting all those, so seeing the light of day, so we can listen to them and appreciate.
Yeah, if you do the 7 disc, it's 6 hours and 13 minutes. So
yep.
Yep. Can't say that they don't give us stuff to listen to. So
yeah, we more
although
than
the vault, yeah, between stuff like this and then the new single we got recently, as far as we know, the vault has been completely emptied. So.
Right. So now we just have to wait for the solo stuff to come out from the vault, slowly from Paul, slowly from George, and Ringo.
Which they are doing that. They are doing that now. Paul's stuff is slowly getting remastered anniversary releases. So, because we just got or are getting Band on the Run.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Paul's been slowly remastering and re-releasing his catalog in chronological order. So, yeah. 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 That's the thing with musicians is, they're constantly thinking, the brain is probably constantly thinking of stuff, and sometimes you just got to get it out, whether it's, if you're home, you got a piano, you got a guitar, whatever, great. If you're in the studio and you just got an idea and you're just like, I'm just going to mess with this, especially now because you can do stuff, capture stuff digitally, so you're not having to be concerned about, like, do I have enough tape for this?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. With digital, you can practically go on forever and not have to worry about it. Do as many tracks as you want, play around with effects and that sort of thing.
You can overdub to your heart's content and not have to worry about the magnetic stripping going bye-bye.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the double stuff Oreo that is the Beatles White Album. Unless you buy the seven disc deluxe edition. In that case, what does Oreo call that? What they like, the mega stuff?
Mega stuffed, yeah, quadruple stuffed,
mega stuff.
The Gene Winchester. I like big mouth.
I
Oreo
just prefer to eat
stuff.
the icing. Forget the cookie stuff.
Right.
There's not a glass of milk big enough for this stuff. Oh, I've had dinner. I've had dessert. Why am I talking about cookies? I don't even necessarily like Oreos. It just works.
You were going with the analogy with,
I guess,
the White Album and the Black Album from Metallica. I get it. It works. It works. It works.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts?
If you haven't sat down and listened to this album in some time, do yourself a favor and sit down for a re-listen. It's worth it.
So, and thankfully, the Beatles catalog is available on Spotify. So if you've got a Spotify account, you can access a good chunk of that.
Yes.
In various forms. A lot of times, you can find, like, because throughout the years, they've released, like, the mono version and then the stereo version and then, like, the Let It Be Naked edition and stuff like that. So it's cool. It's cool.
Very cool.
So, well, if any of our listeners have thoughts, opinions on the White Album or the Beatles' personal shenanigans issues that were going on at the time, or if you've heard any of these songs live and want to give your 2 cents, You can send us a feedback. You can email us, fivishfangirls@gmail.com. Or you can go to our website, which is the fivishfangirls.com, where you can connect with all of our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that, along with our individual personal ones. If you want to join in the book club, the link for that on Goodreads is there. If you'd like to financially support us, you can do that in a number of ways. If you want to support us on the regular, you can become a patron on Patreon. Link for that is on the website. And if you'd like to get a little something in return, we do have merch on Redbubble. So there's that. Or if you just want to do a one-time donation to the show specifically, you can do that via Ko-fi. And if you're feeling really generous and would also like to support our nonprofit Fangirls Give Back, you can do a PayPal donation, which the link for that is also on the website, or you can buy something off of our Amazon wish list, which is also linked. So, of course, we greatly appreciate anyone who parts with their hard-earned money and gives some of it to us, but don't feel like you have to. Don't spend money you don't have. Even just likes and shares and retweets and reposts on social media help a ton. So, and that being said, hopefully as you're listening, this episode has gone up in a reasonable time frame. I'm so sorry about last episode.
We think the master and the celestial playmaker were up to some shenanigans.
The thing is, I went out of town for a few days so that Chauncey and I could go to his work Christmas get together, because that's always a good thing to especially when you work remotely at home, so you don't actually see people face to face that often. So we had to fly down to Atlanta. And our hotel, we had Wi-Fi at the hotel. It was very slow Wi-Fi. And I use the Adobe stuff to do all my editing and everything, but to free up space on my poor hard drive, I've switched to using Adobe via the cloud. Instead of actually having it downloaded on my machine. And when you've got very slow Wi-Fi, that's not very helpful. So I did what I could between Wi-Fi at airports and my terrible Wi-Fi at the hotel. And then when we finally get home, back to my lovely, faster Wi-Fi here at home, then Adobe decided that it did not want to process episode properly. I would sit there and I had edited everything put together, and I went to render it out. It would only render out a second.
You gotta be kidding.
Yes. Like, no, there's way more than a second worth of material here. So So it was a whole thing, and I'm so sorry that it took so long for the episode to be released, but that should not happen again, knock on wood, as long as Adobe cooperates. So I don't have any plans on trying to use hotel and or airport Wi-Fi in the near future. So, that being said, we are going to be off for the next 2 weeks anyway. So, since Christmas and New Year's fall on Mondays, and we'd like everybody to have a chance to spend time with their family and stuff anyway. Eat all you want. Binge watch all you want. Spend time with friends, spend time with family, hopefully stay warm and dry where you are.
Yes. And a certain appointment with a certain doctor.
Yes, we do have a Christmas appointment with a certain doctor, which, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that might be what we're talking about when we return. So, but until then, we hope everyone has a safe and happy rest of really the month and the year.
Yes.
Because that's where we're at. That is where we're at.
We're almost at the end of December already. Holy cow.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, my birthday is in 2 months. So everyone take care, have fun.
Yeah.
If you get really good nerdy stuff for Christmas, hey, post it and tag us. We'd love to see it.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll share some of the stuff we got when we return in 2 weeks. So, but until then, I guess we shall sign off not only for this week, but this month and this year. That's really scary.
This is Brittany Bodo saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Good night, everyone. Good night. Sleep tight. Thank you for listening to the Fiveish Fangirls. Please visit thefiveishfangirls.com for details on how to further support the show, along with information on our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back. We love our Fiveish fam and appreciate all of your feedback, shares, and encouragement. Remember to keep letting your geek flag fly.